much to their surprise. I wanted to ask you something too as a follow-up, because some of your work has been really focused on gene expression and how that's altered by food, by toxicity, as well as obviously more recently also meditation. But as we're talking about the way food, affects us, most of us think, calorie in, calorie out, fat, carbohydrate, protein. We're talking a little bit about within the family of carbohydrates, there are better and worser, okay? But tell us about, but that's just for this moment, I think. Oh my goodness, should I eat the Cinnabon or the oatmeal? But more specifically, you talk about how, okay, sorry, I failed, dang. No, but you talk about how it's not just affecting you at this moment, but in fact, how genes express themselves, and this creates a trajectory. And explain that a little bit for people like myself who are not science people.
So think about food as being not just those macronutrients, the protein, the carbohydrates, the fats. Think of them as intelligence, as information that influences your physiology. And so food has that energy and protein building value to it, but it also has this ability to give your physiology signals, move the physiology's functioning in a better direction. And that's really what happens with gene expression, is that you're altering things so that, and those gene expression effects, the effects on the way that our genes are being expressed, can happen in seconds and then go away in the next few seconds. If you eat that Cinnabon, there are enzymes, there are genes in your liver that will be turned on immediately. You will produce enzymes that will allow you to deal with that Cinnabon, okay? For better or for worse. No. And it will have to do with accumulation of glycogen and fat and all that sort of stuff.
But so it's not just affecting you at that moment, though.
Right.
You're creating a future path, yeah?
Right. That's the point that comes next, is that when you are eating a certain kind of diet, it affects your functioning, your gene functioning longer term. Has anybody heard the term epigenetics? Epigenetics. What happens with epigenetics is that when there's a certain impact on your physiology, the effect of that can actually change the way that your genes are chemically functioning. It doesn't change the sequence of the genetic alphabet, but it changes the actual ability of that DNA to be turned on or expressed or not. And this effect can be long-term. In fact, these effects can be inherited, so that if there's an epigenetic change that occurs as a result of your diet, that can influence your son or your daughter's diet. And when they continue, it can go on to their children. So these effects can be long-term. And of course, they sort of you might, if you don't continue the, what would you say, the stimulus that's giving rise to it, then it falls off in a few generations. But this is something that strongly affects the physiology long term. And there's now evidence that this occurs with the pesticides that you eat. Anybody heard of atrazine? Atrazine is one of the most commonly used herbicides. It's used in corn, it's used in many crops. There's now research that's been done showing that the effects of atrazine this was done in mice. If you feed a mouse atrazine in their diet, and then you will see changes in their genome, okay? You look at and behavioral changes. You look at the next generation, those will be there. And you look at the third generation and they'll be there. So this happens both from the good things in our diet and from the bad things.
Well, this is a little heavy, and
Sorry.
so no, but it's important, because we're looking at our history of our own choices in life, our families, and looking back perhaps. But what's really great about food as medicine is that the choice to change that trajectory can happen as soon as the next meal. right? So that's a beautiful thing. And so that's what you really focus on, right? How, and you as well, like how to flip from and avoid some of the toxins, both in the food, on the food, or in the environment generally, and or how to counteract that by limiting those toxins and choosing food for health.
And there's studies that show that within 1 week, 90% of the pesticides were reduced in a family in Sweden that went organic, and within 2 weeks, 100% were out of their system and out of their body. So it can be done very quickly.
Now that's very encouraging, I think. Yes. That's the beauty of it. Maybe you don't know exactly which foods are right for your dosha, for your body type, and you might want to do some research online or go see a professional. But what you do know is if you can avoid the bad and shoot for the good, then you're on the right direction.
What you were just describing, Zen, what that says to me is that we have a profound ability to change our health, and that probably the singularly most important thing is not even worrying so much about pesticides or contaminants, but just simply choosing healthy food, because it will be restorative, not quite overnight, but almost so. Within a week, 2 weeks, we see changes in the pattern of the gut microbiome in a matter of days. And we can influence this.
They did eat organic, though. They were purposely avoiding pesticides. That
Sure.
family, yes.
Sure. Oh, I'm not advocating that people continue eating even plant foods that are contaminated.
Okay, great.
But the thing is that just simply stopping that and replacing it with healing foods that help to bind and take toxins out of the body and replace them with really good things can have a profound, almost overnight effect. And with regard to the gut microbiome, we talk a lot about the fermented foods, and I'm a big fan of them, but the singularly most important thing we can do, again, is a whole food plant-based diet that provides the fiber and the resistant starch that nourishes the microbes that are already there. It feeds the good guys, and it doesn't feed, it actually sort of starves, although I don't want to use the negative term, but it doesn't feed the opportunistic ones that overgrow and cause so many problems. So just simply, the singularly most important thing is change your diet in this healthy way, and the effects are profound.
That certainly was